Hi there, it's Ali Haji, CEO and Director of Ion Energy. I'm speaking to you from Singapore. Ion Energy is a company I co-founded in 2017 with the goal of looking for lithium in Mongolia. We currently have two assets in Mongolia. One is Babayul, our flagship asset we went public on back in 2020. It's 81,000 hectares, 23 kilometers from the Chinese border. Some of the anomalies found there are up to 1,502 ppm of lithium. We also acquired Urgakh Naran last year. That is our secondary asset, 29,000 hectares in Dorngovi province, about 150 kilometers from the Chinese border. But importantly, that one's vastly more advanced with surface samples of brine at up to 918 milligrams per liter, with an extensive exploration program underway, which I believe we're going to talk about here.
Well, I hope so. Ali, how are you? You're on the road. Where are you?
I am. I'm in Singapore. I was in Mongolia last week, so a little knackered, and the humidity is not doing much for my hair, so here we are.
I've got some products you can use.
Lovely.
Right, Ali, better get on with this because I think while the internet's still around, and you don't, and also if you make sure you don't get dragged off mid-interview somewhere. Right, you're up at site. What were you doing? What was the purpose of going there?
It was, we went out there in April, if our viewers or listeners recall, and that was really a groundbreaking type mission to go and better understand the asset and sort of kick off our geophysics program as well as our auger programs. And we found some very interesting results over the course of the summer. And I went back this time around last week with a couple of strategics, and the goal there was to really show them the potential of Mongolia, why we believe it's a fantastic jurisdiction to operate in. But more importantly, to kick off and review our diamond core drilling program. So we've completed one of 3 holes that we plan to do in terms of diamond. We're also going to be doing water wells, and we have commenced that drilling as well. So the goal of that would be to obtain the brine samples from depth, from the water wells, and use the diamond core to understand the lithology. What that'll allow us to do is really advance towards an inferred resource given the TEM geophysics that we completed over the summer. So exciting times. We have a lot of work going on the ground, and based on the TEM results that I mentioned again, we're seeing a very strong, large, low resistivity zone below surface. And we're just excited to be able to advance Urgakh Naran.
Okay, you're taking strategics up to site already at this early stage. What are they looking for?
Well, there's getting a sense of the country, first off, but also getting a sense of our operating prowess, if you will, in country. So how well are we able to get things done, get a sense of whether or not Mongolia is a jurisdiction that they would be keen to operate in. You know, we've said from the onset, Ion Energy has said from the onset that we are explorers. We understand how to bring assets to resource indication, but we will have to partner with somebody to ultimately bring these assets to production, should they be production worthy. And so that was the purpose of that visit.
Okay, but so let's talk about that because that's kind of interesting in terms of the business model, right? Bringing a strategic partner, using their balance sheet, your connections. Would it be purely the money you're after, or would it be their technical expertise? I mean, how far do you take this?
I think it's a combination of the two. You know, Ion Energy has always been an exit story, one that builds a resource and ultimately allows another organization to develop and bring to production. But having looked at the success of some of our other operations in sister yet independent companies, you know, the ability to be an employer in country and producing a good that is essentially a finished product, call it 99.9% pure lithium carbonate, there's a lot of value to be had there. We continue to force, or we continue to think that an exit for us and our shareholders would be in the best interest for everybody involved. But as the story evolves and the scale of our asset at Urgakh Naran grows, it's a conversation that we need to continue to think about.
So I want to be really clear with people. So would this be at asset level? Would it be at corporate level? You know, and you know, if it is asset level, do you offload one product at a time and one project at a time? And what are the conversations like internally? Asset
level exits are not where our head is at. I think that can destroy companies. So our goal would be a company level sale. And in terms of your earlier question with respect to are we using their balance sheet or their expertise, I think the answer to that would be both. Balance sheet and expertise to help advance our projects towards potential production.
Okay, pretty difficult markets out there for everyone. Everyone's in the same boat, so I'm not going to dig anyone out about share price right now, but clearly valuations are what they are. What do you need to do to get that back up to make sure that any conversation with strategics allows you to capture, the value that you want?
Yep, fair question. And yes, the markets are, let's not go there. But where we need to get to is, of course, the inferred resource calculation before the end of the year, or at least get a sense of the grade at depth. And that will involve, of course, a Baylor system and a nested well methodology in the wells that we're building. So those catalysts will come to be as a result of one of our QPs or our geologist visiting Mongolia over the next couple of weeks, spending time to help complete those exploration programs. And then I think based on an inferred resource, if we're able to get that to market before the end of the year, that'll give us the necessary re-rates. It validates a jurisdiction in which we are first movers. Nobody else has been out there to look for lithium, or nobody has brought an asset this far in terms of lithium exploration. We don't have the proximity play that a lot of our peers in LATAM have, where their neighbor found 1,250 ppm with a producing mine, and their valuations are 130 million or more. With minimal work. So it's up to us to prove to the market that we are sitting on what we believe to be a significant asset, and that'll be where we get our re-rate. Beyond that, I think there's a potential, as we've talked about currently, for a strategic investment to come in and validate the work that we've done and show the commercial viability of our assets. So those are the catalysts that I think the market can expect to see in terms of the next sort of 6 to 9 months that would allow us to re-rate and start trading closer to our peers.
Right. So but you're talking of peers, then you must be looking at the market and going that there are companies which are struggling to get finance to kind of move their projects forward. So in terms of inferred resource, what sort of scale do you feel you need to demonstrate to get, one, people interested, and two, to kind of get the kind of companies that can get financing to move projects forward interested? It's really important, especially where you are in the
absolutely
world.
And I think where we are in terms of that, some of the folks on our team helped build Lithium Americas and Neo Lithium, as we know, and we think in order for an asset to be commercially viable, you would need 10 million ton LCE. That would allow you to justify the capex to ultimately build a mine on that asset. So based on our TEM calculations, if the market's been following us, at a 6.5 ohm cutoff, which is very conservative, we had 22.7 billion cubic meters of potential brine. At half an ohm, we had 9.9 billion cubic meters of potential brine. So that with 100 milligram per liter, of course, grade would give you that 10 million ton necessary. So in that regard, I think we're trending in the right direction. I'm not going to say much more. I think it's up to the exploration program to finish, and then ultimately for us to put that calculation in play that would allow us to really compare apples to apples, as you said, Matt.
Okay, so given what's happening in the marketplace, you're right next door to China. Mongolia's got virgin territory in many ways. You're right next door. The markets aren't giving you credit. The North American markets aren't giving you credit for what you're doing at the moment. Are you now sort of leaning in towards Asia? Is that why you're there at 1-to-1? I mean, what sorts of groups are you trying to talk to whilst you're there?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think the markets in the West don't quite understand the value proposition that Mongolia has to offer, and that's an education piece that we're working hard to close on. The likes of Rio Tinto having doubled down on their OT investment through the acquisition of the Turquoise shares tells you that the majors are interested, the majors are paying attention, and they are looking at Mongolia as a jurisdiction with potential. My aim of being in Singapore, really, I was on site last week, and 1-to-1 happened to be on, so I ended up coming here. ION is not a registered participant, but the guys at 1-to-1 and the assay are good friends and help support us. So I've been here speaking with banks, with institutions, with high net worth individuals as well, trying to tell our story and really get a sense of what it would take to potentially have that re-rate, because of course Mongolia is well known to the Asian market, and if there's a potential for us to work with a group here, be it a strategic or a bank, ultimately allows us to re-rate for the Western market.
I mean, again, the values you're at now. We're kind of running a sort of series coming up called Contrarians guide to investing soon, which, a lot of companies are running at massive discounts, 30, 40, 50, 70% discounts to their fundamental value. You must be looking at yourself and going, $12 million, you've got to be kidding me.
On a daily
basis, on a daily basis, right? But in big strategics looking in at you say, well, if you can demonstrate X, I think this is just a rounding error in terms of our exploration budget. So let's have a conversation. So how quickly do you feel they want to move? Do you want to move? Because getting a deal across the line is great,
absolutely.
But you also want that value, right?
Indeed. I mean, I'll be frank. We've had multiple offers come in for the entire company at what we consider to be a massive discount, specifically because our market cap is piddly, to say the least. And we've unequivocally said no. And we have sort of the luxury of doing so because we completed a bought deal last year that's going to keep us going for a little bit longer here in order to hit those catalysts, which will allow us to re-rate. And then ultimately, I think if we were to propose a strategic coming in, it would be a farm-in approach where they come in for either 4.99% at a premium to the last placement. And for our listeners, that was at 50 cents. And if we were to offer them a bit more, so call it 9.99%, then that would be, of course, at a higher price with a potential warrant attached to it. It allows them to farm into 20% perhaps in the future. That's our thinking as a group, as a company. We're not going to be giving up equity at a level below our last placement. We don't need to, and thankfully we have the catalysts that are upcoming that will hopefully allow us to close this gap unless we fall through a bear trap here and the markets go to even worse positions.
Okay, well, you've answered the next question, which was because we've seen deals getting across the line at 20, 30% premium to 30-day VWAP. That, I guess, would not suit you, but with the farming route, that would make sense. Give you a chance to actually get some creative growth going on there. Well, look, Ali, I know you're busy. You're dashing off to the next session next meeting. So, look, appreciate your time and dialing in hot off the press from Singapore 1-to-1. And we'll speak to you when you get back to base, okay?
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Matt.